lost everything. And we moved back up here next to my in-laws, on the compound, and to get her healthy. And one of the things that I said to her was, "Hey, look, I don't want to really do this anymore," because I was having a lot of success already in my early 20s. I had 3 offices, kind of lost all that stuff. But I was like, I just want to stay under the radar. Just want to relax. And then a year later, ended up quitting my job to lecture nationally. And then within another, I think, a year, 18 months, I was going worldwide.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Perks and Paving. I am Mark. We're joined by my beautiful bride, Paige. We have Dylan in the booth today. And today, guys, we have a very, very special guest. He is the Chief Victory Officer at the Center for Victory. Welcome to the show, Mr. Eric Guy.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, appreciate being on here.
Yeah, we were so excited to have you. I'm glad that Mark got the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better at TCS.
Yes.
After we met at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Back in, when was that, October?
Was it September?
September.
September,
okay.
Yeah.
Very
September,
nice.
yes.
Very nice. But we're very glad that you could join us.
Yeah, Mark said he's going to go this year.
Yeah?
Is that right?
I'm allowed, yes.
Okay. You're allowed.
He wanted to go this past year. I don't know if he mentioned that. It was like his first day in the office when they were trying to figure out who was going, and he didn't want to be that guy on his first day that was like,
I'll go.
Yeah.
Pick me.
Yeah.
So
this year we'll do it for sure, though.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, we only have 30 spots though, right? It's going to be a...
It's
like
25
okay.
right now.
Yeah.
It was 30. Yeah, 25.
Oh,
so
okay.
the email just went out. The email blast went out this morning to all our folks. We'll see what happens. I mean, everybody's excited about it. There's a lot of people. I'm hoping that we get a lot of the crew. At least this crew going again, because I mean, it literally. I know you guys probably don't believe me, but I've said this to Vinny a couple of times. But like that was my year. Like meeting you guys there was like a big highlight of my year. I remember meeting Paige, you and Joyce were the first 2 smiling faces that I met, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good trip.
And isn't it crazy that like we've only known each other since then? It just seems like you're a part of the fam here.
Yeah,
so.
and I come in today, just walk in. I'm like, I feel bad just walking in, but it's like, hey, like I know, I know everybody, saying hi to everybody, and it's hard just going around. I see everybody, like Eli was on a call, and I'm like, I do just want to say hi to him though.
Yep.
So,
no, we get it.
It's a great family here for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about like your background, where you're from, a little bit about your career, and we'll start from there.
Oh, okay. Good. So I was raised down in Washington County. We live in Beaver County now, so I've always been in the area. But my background, we work with a lot of businesses right now, but that was not how I got started. I actually went to school. I was the first one in my family to go to college.
Okay.
And then...
and where did you go?
I went up to Westminster, and then
nice. I went to Bethany, so we were in the same conference.
Yeah.
I don't know if Bethany was definitely in the same conference then.
Maybe not back then.
Maybe not.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay.
But anyhow, we did that. Then that's where I met my wife after just getting really close to get kind of a 14 or 15 no's. It's up there in the teens from her, but she finally, just short of a restraining order, finally said yes, met her. We got married right after college, like a month after college.
Right.
And then, I was very blessed with somebody who actually saw my talent of working actually with kids and said, you have a gift. I didn't want to go on to school, but I was actually fast-tracked into the program at Pitt that I took, got my license as a therapist, took off, just got frustrated with all the medical insurance and things like that.
We get it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys do get that. Just so frustrating. So I decided long ago to to do in-home. I go and I stay with people in their homes for periods of days. My wife fondly refers to that as the super nanny on steroids.
Okay.
I had tremendous success with that. I mean, I've gotten people off gross amounts of medication, families back together, had a great, jaunt with that, was going all over the place, ended up going and speaking in other countries, doing training in other countries, being able to help people that wouldn't necessarily be able to afford our services. Been to Africa, been to South America, just doing all these things. But why I tell you that is because that's what led me into working with companies.
Yeah.
The folks in that were paying for that in-home service said, "Hey, look, I want you to come do this in my company." At first I was like, nah. And then I was like, okay, this is just kind of the same thing.
What was your reservation on doing that? I mean, was it just because it was different than what you were used to, or you were happy where you were, or what was holding you back?
I was very happy with what I was, and I didn't really want to. Had no desire to get into business, and I literally only had, in all those years of training in college and university, master's degree, everything, I only had one business class.
Okay.
All right. And I was like, I don't really know. How do I even do that? Like, I don't even want to start trying to do that. But I found that I have even more success doing there because it's typically more receptive audiences. People are ready for help. And it literally is the same stuff.
Right.
I mean, and it's just fantastic to see people grow, knowing that, what we do. My wife and I have worked together for a while now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. She's the boss.
We should have had her come too.
I'm trying to get her on my podcast that we've been doing for years. So she's finally got there. So maybe we can get her on here.
All right.
But
I did not know that.
I know it's hard to be very general and speaking about what are some things that you find in businesses that are already very successful that are trying to scale, trying to grow? Like, what are some of the common themes or issues that you see when you're working with these companies? If you could be, I know it's hard to paint a brush.
No, I mean, the biggest thing for me is they take time for their people. I think that's why we hit it off when you all came out to the canyon. And then, I started talking to Brian. I'm like, this guy's got it. He knows what he's doing. Like, he might not know everything, but just the investment in your people. I know when we've taken other people on similar things, just getting them out, getting them going. It's amazing what happens as a team. But when you genuinely, like, there are some companies that say they invest in their people and they really don't. Yeah. But when you genuinely put that kind of work in, you get a great environment. You have engagement. You have high retention rates. Nobody wants to leave, and you get other great people. I know the gentleman sitting behind the boxer. I know he hadn't been here too long, but I'm sure there's a reason that he's here. Somebody saw something in him, and hopefully he gets, like I've seen with other people, you get on board. I mean, Mark, you've experienced that after Paige has come here too, just that whole camaraderie piece. And it's not like you don't have bad days. You mean there's arguments, there's things like
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. But it's like it's really setting that culture that makes just a world of difference, and that is what I know for sure is going to make companies competitive into the future. If you're going to invest in your people, it's easier to get people because people know about you. You're not going to have the funnel problems some companies do. Oh, we can't get anybody. Right. Well, that's probably because you don't invest enough in your people, or your culture stinks, or whatever it might be. But when you create it, it's a lot easier.
Sure.
And we were speaking right before we started recording about the predictive index and that kind of information. Can you I'm very curious on, like, if there were statistics that you could cherry pick that would just kind of be jaw dropping in terms of retention or predicting someone's performance in a company long term. If you could kind of expand on that a little bit.
I mean, one of the examples we use in training is a company that we have, and when we engage with them, they had a lot of churn. Okay. Their retention rate was only 50%. We just took in our assessments and we started just using them to match people to the right role. So what we do with that is it's just not a behavioral assessment for the person. It's actually for the role as well. So we create the role, the behavior for the role, and then we match people against that. All we did was match people against that. That's all we did at first. We didn't do any training. We just matched people against it. 20% bump in retention. Okay. Then the next step we did, we brought their managers in and we trained all their managers on how to manage their people. There was a 16% bump in there. So now they're sitting at 86%. So huge, and that was a really big company.
That's awesome.
So that's how we, that's kind of how we do that and how we help them have success. But it's really helping other people understand what those differences are, and we're all hardwired differently. And I'm sure, you two, probably like my wife and I, we are completely different. I mean, you saw,
Absolutely.
I was back in the bus talking to you guys the whole time, and she's just sitting in her seat, very quiet. And I think she was kind of grateful that I had somebody else to talk to, because I would have just talked her whole ear off all the way on that bus ride up. And, but that's what we need. But when we try to change each other and, the whole, putting a square peg in a round hole, you can't do that. It doesn't work. You can't change who you are. We want to get people to bring out their gifts, to know their gifts first, bring those out, and help people understand that, hey, look, Mark does this, Paige does this. This is what they're really good at. How can we be more complementary to one another so it doesn't feel like work, instead of competitive with one another? Well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Well,
and people are going to like what they do more if they're good at what they're doing too. So, I mean, I think just that alone, you're setting the person up for success if, they're in a role that, is best fit for them. So can you elaborate more on, like, it seems simple, like find the skills that it takes, match it with the person for that job. Like, but what is the process that goes into that? Like, did you create that? Is that something that was already formulated? Did you have a team kind of brainstorm on like the process, the different metrics? Like, what was that process?
So that particular assessment is one that's been around the longest. So it's been around since 55. Some of the other ones we use measure like motivation and measure the current state of the person, how they actually see themselves, is which we use in coaching. But the one up front that we use, the behavioral piece that we typically start with, there's been a lot of validity around. There's a lot of behavioral assessments out on the market. I mean, like,
so this wasn't something you created where you're just utilizing something that's already there as a tool and putting it into motion.
Valid over and over and over again, validation over and over and over again. And it comes, the nice thing I like about it is it's real easy to take. It's quick to take. It only takes about 7 to 8 minutes to take, and you get these crazy accurate results. And then, you take the time. Each company takes the time for each position inside their company to make sure they're creating those job targets to match against that person. And then the biggest thing, right, and this is the companies that will succeed, and I believe this is one of them, follow what I call the platinum rule. Treat people the way they need to be treated for maximum productivity and efficiency. I mean, as a manager,
I like that.
When I started out, I treated everybody like from what I needed, right? And that works. That might work for a Trey, right? Trey's wired a lot like me. We hit it off. The day I came in here, we were like brothers. All right. And then I remember us recording a podcast, and it went like an hour long. We're just chatting and chatting and chatting. That's an easy relationship to have. Right. Okay. But it's the other people who are going to make me complimentary. Do I give them what they need? Do I give them, details? Do I give them time away? Do I give them a collaborative environment? All those things. But it's very helpful to know that, so you don't take it personal. It's just, that's the person, who they are. And the more we can create the environment around those things, the better off we are, because everybody's at their best.
For sure.
I mean, obviously you're helping companies helping people in those companies, but have you always been called to serve, to help? Is that something that you've known your entire life that you were meant to help other people? Is that something that you stumbled on later? Or kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I have a big, when we talk about motivations, if that's even another assessment, the first time I took that, just very high, very off the chart altruistic. I mean, to the point where when I was younger in my career, I had to watch that I didn't do too much and get burnt out. But yeah, I mean, that is always something. I never asked for any of this. I remember telling my wife when we moved back up here, she had a stroke when she was pregnant with our second, and we lost everything. And we moved back up here next to my in-laws, on the compound, and to get her healthy. And one of the things that I said to her was, "Hey, look, I don't want to really do this anymore," because I was having a lot of success already in my early 20s. Had 3 offices, kind of lost all that stuff. But I was like, I just want to stay under the radar. Just want to relax. And then a year later, ended up quitting my job to lecture nationally. And then within another, I think, a year, 18 months, I was going worldwide.
That's amazing.
And, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of I always say, when you tell God your plans, and then he's gonna rewrite the story. But I was like, hey, look, I want to be under the radar. I don't want to do anything. And then all of a sudden, boom, it was like, wow. So it was a little bit overwhelming too.
Yeah.
But it was good. I mean, because that gave her time to heal.
Yeah.
And that gave me time to research some of the things that we do that actually, kind of coincide with that healing journey for her and I.
For sure. So how long ago was that she had the stroke?
So my daughter is 22.
Okay.
She was pregnant with my daughter, so that's been about 23 years ago.
Okay.
That was a pretty scary day.
Yeah.
Because I was home that day. So she had 2 strokes, but the one that was really scary she had while at school.
Okay.
I was home with our son, who at the time was, well, he was about a year old, because our kids are real close in age. Get a call. I meet her up at the school. They're putting her in the ambulance.
Oh,
She was a teacher. And it was just a very scary day, full left side paralysis.
Oh.
And she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And she's pregnant with our daughter. And they had no idea what was going on. I mean, it's still to this day. I know Tyler asked me, I think it was Tyler that asked me what caused that. We can't say for certain,
Right.
What it was.
So from there, I know a big, you guys went to the Grand Canyon, and that was a goal of hers to hike the Grand Canyon rim to rim, which is amazing. So she's been, how long has she had that goal? I mean, is this just something within the last couple of years? She's like, this is what I want to do, or is this, 10 years ago? I mean,
no, it wasn't 10 years ago. Because her first goal was to get off all the medication.
Okay.
All right, because she was on some pretty heavy duty stuff that just, you never know how you're going to feel when you're on that stuff. And I'm a big proponent of being med free too. So
Right.
we're always trying to look for alternatives. What are we doing? Are there things that we can do to help this situation out? And so I guess probably when I kind of put the flag in the ground that I was going to climb Mount Fuji.
Okay.
I said, look, I mean, this is something we can do together. I don't expect you to go climb a mountain with me, but we started talking, and she's like, I'll do the canyon. And I'm like, well, this is going to be cool because we're going to do it together. And little did I know you guys were going to be there too. So it made it so much easier for her.
Yeah.
Because it was almost like we brought all our friends.
Yeah.
Because by the time we got off that bus,
it's like we had known each other forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we had Caleb and Sarah, who she knows.
Yeah, and then we had Layla in our group. She's from California, but she was with us the whole way through in the front group, and she was amazing. She was like part of the team by the end too. So, but what an inspiration for your wife. I mean, 25 and a half miles. I mean, at one point she probably never even thought that was possible, and for her to actually accomplish that, I mean, that is just incredible.
Yeah, I
It is
mean,
such an
just
inspirational
I think
story.
it's the mental thing. You know this since you've gone through, but
Yeah.
the mental part for us was, I started questioning myself probably halfway in. I didn't question my ability to get out. I was like, did I push too hard? Like, did I ask for something that was really dumb here? You look at that, the thermometer down there, and it's
hot.
reading 122, and I'm like, oh man, is this another dumb Eric idea that I pushed my wife to do? And then the last 3 miles, that was all us. I mean, it was very emotional because we had to stop a few times. We were checking our heart rate. I'm like, babe, you got this. Like, let's go. Like, we can do this. We've come this far, and that's hard, that last piece, because it's
You're
dark.
exhausted too.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you had already been out there how many hours? I mean,
Yeah. So the last 3 miles took about an hour each.
yeah.
And so just getting dark, we're like, because you could see the top from kind of that 3 mile piece, and you start getting cell service there.
Yeah.
So I'm getting like, I went in full Eric mode. I'm like all jacked up. I'm like, let's call the kids,
Yeah.
and that's what I was doing. And I called Brian, who's the the leader of K2, just to tell him where we was at, because they had done their protocol and their due diligence with Tammy's health as well.
Yeah.
And I was all like, let's go. And then I was like, ooh, this is probably the hardest 3 miles. And it's like,
And with those step ups in the dark, I mean, we had some light. So, I mean, in the dark, I mean, you guys had your headlamps back out, and you guys had started in the headlamps and you ended in the headlamps.
Yeah, and you don't know where the edge is.
Right, you don't know where the edge is. Those steps, I mean, they're not like every, so many feet. I mean, it's just random.
Right.
Like, here's a step and here's a step. So you really have to be careful. And at that point, like, your legs are exhausted too. So even if you do see them, just to make that step, I mean, it's a lot.
It was a big thing for she and I to accomplish that, and accomplish it together. And I think the cool thing was that we didn't expect, because Brian and a couple other people from here came out at the same time.
Yeah.
And we got to experience you guys rooting for everybody.
Yeah.
You just all came out. That was such a great experience. I mean, I really felt, again, like part of the family. It's just like, wow, man, these guys have been like in their rooms for hours and come out and just cheer their other, folks on. And I was like, man, this is a great community. Yeah.
That was one of our favorite moments too. We actually talked on a podcast with Joyce, and that like one of our most memorable moments of the weekend was when you guys came in and we just came out and cheered for you guys. It was just, we all did it. Like, we were done, we did it, and it was
really neat. I don't know who it was, but I remember catching out of the corner of my eye, somebody was even in their underwear coming out to cheer. I can't remember.
It was Dave.
I'm just like, man, they were all in here. I mean, it's like they just came all out.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't.
How
like,
could I
it's just
forget?
seared in my memory. I'm like, wow, they're cheering. Oh, somebody in their
here's Dave
underwear.
in his
That's
underwear.
cool. He didn't prepare, but he's out here anyhow.
He committed.
Yeah.
He's committed. So what would you say that did for your guys' relationship? I mean, with Mark and I potentially looking to both do it this year. Like, obviously that's a great team building activity, but you guys as a couple and like overcoming, and you talked about how hard those last 3 miles were, like, I'm sure that strengthened that bond between you guys even more than you probably would have even imagined.
Yeah, I mean, we've been married. I think we'll celebrate 28 years this year. And we've been together over 30. It's one of those things. Caleb always says, and I've heard it with you guys too. It was actually on the video. You go into the canyon, it's not the same person coming out. It is all mental, right? You don't. We typically don't set out to do that kind of thing. I would much rather run a marathon and it's just over, right? It's over really quick.
So,
I mean, this is...
So you're going to run the marathon?
All day. I'm doing a half in Pittsburgh.
I know, you already told me that. I'm still trying to encourage people.
Yeah.
That's great, though.
But for us, I mean, just having all that time undistracted, walking, being in nature, I mean, it is gorgeous down there. It is like, I kept saying, hey, look. Right? And just having that time to go together, we knew there was a mountain to climb. but again, it's the reinforcement in the brain that says we got through it. I mean, because there's just that pound of energy. I mean, we ran right over to the sign at the rim there when we got up there and just got our picture taken. I mean, we weren't tired anymore. We got that kind of rush and had a big hug, called the kids. I think it's inspirational for them to see that too. Like, hey, Absolutely. Here's mom and dad. I mean, my kids are, 22 and 23 years old. And they're like, hey, look, this is something because we set big goals for them. This is big. This is big for me to do. This is real big for your mom to do. These are goals, and that helps them chase their goals too. But I think just the other thing that it did is, helped her see where I want to kind of take our company, because you guys know Caleb, but I mean, we're bringing him on as a guide to actually guide these things with leaders and bring some of the assessments and goal planning and things into that arena. We have 3 planned, and she's lockstep behind it. I mean, she actually said coming out of the canyon last year, never doing this again. This is a one and done. She had a lady come up to her. Actually, the lady's almost 70 years old. Come up and say, hey, look, I want to go with you guys next year. And this is a lady that Tammy and I, my wife, both worked for when we were really young. Yeah. And she's like, well, if she's going, I might go back. I'm like, oh baby, let's go.
Round 2.
So she might actually go back. But, it was just the other thing too, and I don't know if this will be the same for you, but maybe just to kind of entice you to do it. We got to walk every morning together. Yeah. So we went hiking. We did, we went to the park. We did at least 3 miles, sometimes 4, sometimes 5, sometimes 6, to the point where we knew where exactly 3 miles was going to be. We knew, okay, if we're going to go down and do 3 real quick. And it was much easier. It was much easier to go back in and then start working again. So that was the other benefit, that we did that every day, and we had that time to talk to one another every day. Because I mean, that just walking 3 miles kind of brisk takes at least 45 minutes. If we're doing 6 miles, sometimes we would do 6, 7, or 8, like on the weekend, just to get prepared. Yeah, that's that whole time we're talking. Yeah, like going back and I'm talking. Yeah,
that's fair. That's okay. Someone has to listen, right? Yeah. But all right, I know Mark wants to get into more with his book, correct? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know we took a turn on the Grand Canyon, which I wanted to talk about. But
you're an author, and I had a couple of questions regarding the book. 2 questions specifically. Number 1, just generally, what was it like writing the book? What was the process for you personally? And my second follow-up question is, what would you recommend or give? What kind of advice would you give someone who's thinking about it but wants to take that push? What kind of advice would you give to someone?
That was probably the worst thing I ever did. Like,
I've heard writing a book is one of the hardest, loneliest processes that there is in this world.
Yeah. But here's what I will say, because this is one of the things that we do, especially like when people become our coaching clients, I always make them jot out their story. The reason that I wrote that was to get my story coherent. It wasn't necessarily to publish it. I knew I needed to do it for me. Here's what my life looked like, because I can't live back there, right? I can't remember. I want to quote Brian this morning because it was funny. My wife and I were both watching his show this morning, and he said something about it. He said it better, victim culture, now, but he said it kind of fun. It was better than that. But when you live out of the past, you're a victim to that past. Yeah. And that's why we named the company Center for Victory. It's not Center for Mediocre. It's not Center for Victims. It's you're going to have victory. And if you don't want to do that, don't jump on board. There's a lot of mediocre people out there. But it was really to set up my story. And a lot of people don't like to do that. They don't like to give themselves a timeline because they look back at it and go, ooh, look at all that ugly stuff. And I'm saying, look at the trampoline that you have that's going to propel you into the future. That's how I'm looking at it. And that was initially why I wrote it. And so it was a little bit easier, I think, for me to give that to somebody and say, hey, look, especially now, because some people say, hey, look, I can never get to where you're at. I'm like, Like, I was in the food stamp office after she had her stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we lost everything,
Mhm.
and we built this, up. It was hard. There was a lot of struggle. But that whole book talks about that, how we conquer our fears.
Mhm.
What do we do? Especially from a brain standpoint. Like, if you're just constantly flooded with negative thoughts and negative talk, you're probably not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then the thing about, a lot of the things we talk about is your inner circle. Who is that? Who are those people? Who are you doing life with? And Jim Rohn said that years ago. He's quoted as saying that, you're the fabric of the closest 5 people you have in your life. And I see that all the time with people everywhere I go. I mean, I've worked out and, I've worked on, reservations and see that old way of thinking still pulls people back into some of that where kids are, right up, they're getting ready to graduate, and then they just drop out like 2 weeks prior to graduation because nobody in their family's ever graduated. So, they feel guilty, or somebody's putting some pressure on them. Or any kind of mentality that's kind of a welfare state, a scarcity state, you kind of want to get out of. And, that's why it was refreshing. Why it was a highlight to be in with you guys. I'm like, wow, like this, I could see a lot of these people being in my tribe. Like, these are the kind of people I want to be around. I felt extremely fortunate to just like, wow, how did I even land here to get a huge group of people like this? Not just like 1 or 2 out of that group. I mean, how did whole back of the bus is lit. I mean, it's like, I've got, I saw Tony down in Naples, and I was like, man, I forgot that I just met him in September.
Mhm.
We hugged like we were brothers, like we had been known each other for years, and it is amazing too, and knowing that people have your back. But I wanted to write it to Mark to give people hope. When people ask what I do when I go and set foot inside of somebody's house, especially as a therapist, especially if, I've been with some families that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars before they get to me on treatment that they think is going to work. And a lot of times what they're told is there's no hope. And I think that if you ask a lot of my clients, that's what they'll tell you. Eric came in somehow and gave us hope. And I just keep, it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. Right. Yeah. But if you have that hope, I think we all have that ability to overcome, but we have to get the right mindset, get the right goals, get the right people around us, and then have action towards that. You can have it.
I mean, the work you do is great. And I personally think Chief Victory Officer is the most badass work title I've ever seen. So
yeah,
I just want to share that with you.
Yeah, my daughter might argue with you a little bit because we named her our Chief Joy Officer.
Yeah, I saw that on the website.
Yeah, so that's stuck around. But yeah, I like that because that's what we're all about. We're all about creating victory for people, and it doesn't matter what you do, right? You don't have to have. I have a lot of clients that you've never heard their name. They're not out in the spotlight, but they're doing great work. Either a lot of them in their families, in their communities, nobody knows. And I think that's what we all want. Like, we're all looking for that, just to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to have that purpose, to know that when we leave Earth, that we've left something great for somebody else to hang on to. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we can't appreciate or thank you enough for the time you spent with us today. And you want to take us home?
Yeah. Before we wrap up, can you just talk briefly about your podcast? So if anyone wants to tune in to listen to a little bit more about you have to say.
Yeah. Does this mean you guys are going to come on mine too?
Yeah, we are 100%.
All right. So yeah, my podcast is Your Best Day Yet. We've done that for a while. It's just, we have all kind of different walks of life people. We try to get a lot of people from this area, from the Berg. So, the Berg's a great thing. So we try to get, people from around here too, but we've had people there that just do anything, from doctors. We just had, actually, when I was down in Naples, I just interviewed a gentleman. He is the oldest living bodybuilder in the Americas. He's 83 years old.
Wow.
I think that comes out next week or the following week. But it's just exciting to be able to interview people, to pick their brains, because there's always a tidbit. Everybody has something to give. And when they come on the show, they always do. They always produce. The young lady that I had on that was just on this week, she walks with crutches. And I did my best to hold it all together because as she told her story, she climbed Machu Picchu in Peru. All right. I know how difficult it was to climb Fuji.
Yeah.
Just being able-bodied. She did it in crutches. And she is just an inspiration to a lot of people. But that's what we're hoping to do. That's why we call it Your Best Day Yet.
Awesome.
We'll
Appreciate the plug.
Yeah, we'll
put the book
link.
and the podcast link in the comment section for sure.
But thank you, as you said, thank you so much. We appreciate your time coming to the office. It's always great to see you, and we feel very fortunate to have gained a great friend from the Grand Canyon trip, and looking forward to growing our relationship and coming on your podcast soon. So,
all right, thank you.
Good stuff.
Thanks
All
for
right.
Dylan being in the booth today as well. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're rocking it over there. All right. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Perks and Paving.